dress up or getting confused. So now there's that this very unique dressing like the character.
Hello and welcome everyone to Celebrity Customer Experience, episode 46
with me, Jill Raff, Riffs with Jill Raff, where we riff on everything from EX to CX, from employee experience to customer experience, because I am truly obsessed with employee experience, creating outstanding customer experience, because I believe that your business will increase their revenue due to engaging committed and loyal employees and customers. And it begins from the inside out, which is why my process is called the Inside Out Framework, because I know that employee experience will produce outstanding customer experience. So why celebrity customer experience? Because I feel that every customer deserves to have the same attention and treatment as a celebrity. So I'm going to be bringing on our guest today. Andrew is with us, Andrew Locke. And I just want to mention before we introduce Andrew that if you are watching live here on LinkedIn, YouTube, or Facebook, feel free to write in your comments directly. We will see them on the screen and we can respond to them. And I'm so excited and welcome everyone from Clubhouse joining us today. Our first time going live with Clubhouse. We will do this every week. So because Clubhouse is audio only, I cannot see or hear your comments in the moment, so please write them down. We're going to jump back in at 12:30, and if you're watching here on LinkedIn or the other platforms, join us on Clubhouse at 12:30 for the conversation that will happen afterwards. Really super excited about that. So without further ado, Andrew, thank you for joining today.
Oh, my pleasure. Good to be here.
Andrew is an internationally recognized marketing expert and speaker, author of 7 books, and his latest is called Walt Disney's Way, 17 Success Secrets for Small Business Owners. In the book, Andrew reveals the magical, of course it's magical, right? If it's Disney, the magical marketing strategies that Walt Disney used to attract guests and keep them coming back over and over again. So Andrew, I want to just back up a little bit and talk about your background. Like, how did you come to creating a book and writing a book about Walt Disney Way, and also about your other books? I'd love to hear about those.
Well, thank you. It's been a long journey. When I was about 14-year-old, as a British school kid, well, I mean, I'm still British, but back then I was at school, and I remember I was in a doctor's waiting room, and I picked up a Reader's Digest magazine, and there was an article in there about Walt Disney, and it absolutely captured my attention. And part of the reason was because at school I was badly bullied. I had my head shoved down the toilet, and just all kinds of horrible things for no other reason other than the fact that I was a good student, and some other kids didn't like that. And when I started reading this article about Walt, I just really resonated with his story, the fact that he came from a very humble background and was experienced quite a lot of trials in his teens himself. Anyway, I wasn't able to finish the the article, so I was really transfixed by it. So I asked if I could take it, and I took it home with me. And that night I stayed up in bed and I read every word, and I just really felt like I was drawn to him and resonated with him, with what he had gone through. And that was the start of a very long journey of discovery and investigation into Walt, which has continued for decades down to this day. And originally, I mean, growing up in England, I honestly thought I would never even get to experience one of the Disney theme parks. But as it's turned out, I did about 40 trips to Disney World from the late 1980s onwards, and then ended up moving to the States in 2003. And actually, I've been able to visit all of the Disney theme parks around the world over 100 times. So,
Wow. Oh my gosh.
And a lot of the book actually was written inside the parks, because it was a very inspirational place to be, and I was able to directly observe things that are stories and anecdotes that come through the book that I think make it a lot more interesting and practical too.
Absolutely right. Stories sell. People really relate to that. So that's amazing. First of all, that you've been there for all of them so many times is pretty remarkable. So you are indeed an expert. I would say that definitely qualifies you. And
yeah, I've also read every book about Disney, and I've also watched every documentary, and there's a lot of them. So it's, I really sort of wanted to round out my viewpoint of him. And by the way, the interest in him sort of morphed, because as a teen, it was more sort of on the personal side of what he went through. But as the years went on and my own passion for business and marketing grew, it turned towards what Walt did in that area of building the business and how he treated customers and so on. So these days, that's really the focus of my attention, is looking at that side of things and helping other business owners to incorporate those lessons in their own business, because there really is so much to learn.
Well, you kind of read my mind, because that was my question. My next question was, how did you take this inspiration and what you resonated with clearly as a teenager and what had happened to you, which is so terrible. No human should ever have to go through that, regardless of age. But how you took that, and I'm just curious how that inspired you to actually become a leader then in the customer experience and in the hospitality world, because it's one thing to be inspired. And as a child, we all fall in love, as we talked about starting out on Clubhouse, right? The magical kingdom, it just speaks to the child in every one of us. And so it's interesting how then you decided, which I'd like to hear a little more, like what made you decide that this was now what I wanted to do as an adult. This was my space. Was it just a natural continuum?
It was natural. I found Walt very inspirational as a person. I found, his visionary leadership and his ability to have such self-confidence that he never took no for an answer. The fact that he was turned down by over 100 banks for the financing for Disneyland, and all of these stories that were roadblocks or could have been obstacles along the way. But I found that very inspirational. And the more I studied him and the business, the more I realized that they are a great example to follow. They're one of the top 3 most admired companies in the world, according to Forbes. They're also one of the most profitable companies in the world. So they have that right kind of combination of not just being profitable, but also doing it in the right way, which actually is quite rare these days. It's a rare combination. And so they really are, they deserve our close attention. They deserve to be studied, and it all originated with Walt. So the more I sort of got into his, his life and the business side of things, the more I realized that this is a company and a man that is worthy of study.
Mm. So I just want to highlight for everyone something that you said, which I think is so important, regardless of what industry you're in, what business, what your goals are, is that he didn't take no for an answer. He just went to the next person and to the next person. And I want to encourage everyone, if you hear no or you hear negative feedback from a family member or friend that you're throwing an idea by, it doesn't resonate with them. That doesn't mean that it's not right. So keep going, because a no is just, or if it's from a client that you're speaking to about perhaps doing business together and they say no, it may be an objection in that moment, or it might just be no right now. Like it's not the right time, or maybe they just need clarity. No, an objection might just mean that they need clarity around what it is that you're offering. It might not be a definitive no. In fact, I think most times it's not a definitive no. And once you get to that point where it is a definitive no, then it's okay. It's not right for that person. We can't appease everyone. And it's better to know early on who our offerings resonate with and who they are good for, that can help, and who they're not. So we can move on to help those who really do need what it is that we are offering to help with. So thank you for mentioning that.
Good point, Jill. Reminds me of Walt's first boss, who said that, and the direct quote was that he lacked imagination and had no good ideas. And so, that tells you that you have to be very careful who you take advice and opinions from. Some people just aren't qualified to give advice, and we need to recognize that, because, especially if we are sort of a sensitive person, we can easily take that to heart and just give up. And Walt, was able to rise above that. Even at school, he was, quite a sort of a dreamer and a very imaginative boy. And he was one day he was drawing some flowers, and he had drawn faces on the flowers, with different expressions. And his teacher immediately criticized him and said, "Walt, flowers do not have faces." But to him, so it could have easily sort of crushed him, but to him, he didn't care. He was like, well, why not? They can, in my mind, if, that was sort of how he was. He's just had that inherently creative aspect to him. And, he wasn't put off by what others thought, even though many people criticized him. And, and that happened, by the way, throughout his life. When in the Snow White project, that movie, the newspapers, the media universally said it was not going to succeed. They all said, in fact, they called it Walt Disney's Folly. They said, because they called it that, by the way, because the project had gone on so long, it was way over budget to an enormous amount. It was the most expensive movie at that time. And it had gone years over the time schedule that it was supposed to be produced in. And not only that, but there had never been a full-length feature film as a cartoon. And so people actually said in the media, we don't want this, because goodness knows what's going to happen to people. They could have severe medical effects by watching that length of cartoon. We're not supposed to be doing that. Anyway, as we all know, when it was finally released, it became the most successful movie of all time, and with, financially and in viewership. So Walt was right, and he could have easily been dissuaded and disheartened and, maybe scrapped the project even. But
I think a lot of times people who are creative thinkers and forward thinkers, people can't relate to that. So instead of, pulling yourself back and just say, okay, that's fine, they're not where my mind is, but there's no judgment around it, and just continue full steam ahead, because that's what makes exciting changes, is that creativity, is that outside of the box thinking. I love the story of the faces on the flowers. Like, why not? Of course, it's fantastic. But because someone else has a limited way of looking at the world shouldn't limit your the way you look at the world. So I just want to move a little bit to your tagline for your book is 17 Success Secrets for Small Business Owners. So a couple of questions. One, why particularly small business owners, and should it apply to any size business?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. So in reading all these books over the years, what I realized was that while a lot of them dealt with the stories and the sort of the historical aspect of Walt's life, that was sort of one category. The other category was largely Disney lessons for corporations. And where there was a gap in the market, no one had, to my knowledge, written a book that was specifically for small business owners and entrepreneurs. So although you're absolutely right, most of the lessons are actually universal. There are some subtle aspects in terms of the way that I present those lessons that are unique to this book, and so I felt like that it was long overdue and time to write a book that served a very important audience that are the backbone of this country and other countries around the world.
Very much so. Thank you. So it's wonderful. You saw a gap and you filled that gap. And I think for everyone, particularly those listening on Clubhouse, I think most of us are our own business owners where we have small businesses. And so this book would be especially useful for, I think, everyone listening here on Clubhouse, and even those whether they're in LinkedIn or Facebook, YouTube. LinkedIn may have more people that they could relate to it on the corporate level. So I would encourage everyone to buy that book and to look at it, and don't think of it only as for small businesses, but recognize that those principles could be applied across anything. So why 17 success secrets?
The number really, excuse me, was more from the in creating a lot of content over the years. One of the things that I've discovered is that people like numbers. They seem sort of like it's bite size and achievable when you put a number on something. So that was the reason that I decided to make it specific, and it also made it convenient to create each chapter of the main teaching points one of those aspects.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. Again, I think most of us can relate. Most of us are content creators and work with our clients. And I think as human beings, we do like to be able to have a concrete number, knowing what to expect.
Yeah.
I wondered whether the 17 was random, or it was, had some specific, excuse me, some specific meaning. So because you have 17, and until everyone can get your book, for right now, if you had to just choose only 3, what would be the top 3 that you could share with us right here today?
Yeah, that's a great question. So let me have a look here. I've got the book here. Let me look at the different chapters here, see what would be relevant for your business too. So certainly one of them would be creating and keeping loyal customers. That's chapter 7. Number 11 would also be, that's very close to my heart, creating a magical experience. And number 15, empower employees. So if we go back to the first one, creating and keeping loyal customers, that really centers around that whole chapter, and that principle revolves around Walt's very famous quote, which should be inspirational and a guide business owners today. Unfortunately, it doesn't. But the quote was, he said, "Do what you do so well." And he was referring to any business, by the way, service or product. Do what you do so well that your guests or customers will want to return again and again and bring their friends.
Yes,
and it's such a great quote, because if if you really live by that in your business, you will see dramatic changes. And as I said, sadly, most businesses don't. They tend to view the process of business as transactional, which is very antiquated now. Simply like, I have a product or service, would you like it or not? If you do, then give me this amount of money. So that's what I mean by transactional. And then that's it. That's the process.
Right.
But that's so antiquated. It's not what people want anymore. More than ever before in history, people want experiences. And you can relate this to any business. I mean, literally any business. If you don't provide someone with an experience, if I go further than that and say an outstanding or memorable experience, then your business is in danger of going the way of the dodo. It really is.
Yeah.
And Disney was so ahead of his time in creating experience. He of course had a sort of an easier industry because he's in the entertainment industry. But really, that's not to excuse other companies not doing it, because it is absolutely what people want these days. If you think about something, something that I experience a lot, almost every week, is flying. And I compare, for example, the major US airlines to some of the Middle Eastern airlines, like Qatar, for example. There's no comparison with the experience.
No.
You see, the problem is most US airlines, even the really good ones like Delta, they still think that it's really only about having, a comfortable onboard product and some good customer service. And if you actually look at what these other airlines like Qatar and Emirates and so on are doing, it's like night and day difference. Just to give you a quick example, I went on Qatar recently. First of all, this is in business class. You have sort of your own suite with a little door. You have the seat that converts into a bed. You have a humongous TV in front of you. So the product is good, and it's better than most of the US airlines. But the things that really make the difference are, for example, like the service. When I say service, I mean the food service.
Human element.
There's no meal time like there is on all the US airlines. They simply give you a menu, which is much more elaborate than any other menu you've ever seen. Like think Cheesecake Factory type menu. And you can order whatever you want from the menu at any time. So it's not about when is it convenient for the flight attendants to make the meals, as it is on all of the US airlines. It's what is best for the passenger, the guest. And that's such a humongous shift. I can't tell you, when you experience that and they say to you, just let us know whenever you're hungry. And it's like, how has no other US airline even thought of this concept? Because it is all about what's convenient for them. They want to be able to heat up all the meals at the same time.
Right. I was going to say it's about convenience and for the employees versus thinking of the customers. And
Exactly.
I just to wrap back a little bit on, you've said so many great gems and so many nuggets. I just love the point about transactions. 100%. It's exchange of goods and services for money. There's nothing emotional, no human element. And it's actually why my tagline is, or my motto, I should say, is transform transactions into interactions. And it's actually the title of a book that I have, because we have to make that interactional. And you mentioned being positive and memorable. Like I have what I call my PMI process. And I'm also in real estate, so it's not private mortgage insurance, but it's insurance of a more important kind, which is your repeat customer insurance. And that is making sure that every interaction that you have is positive, is memorable, and is a genuine interaction with your people. So everything you've hit on, and it is so fascinating. And I love that so many decades ago that Walt Disney came up with this. Another thing that you said, triggered a thought that I had recently. I saw an old newspaper article that the Gainesville Sun had written on my dad. My father and my parents and grandparents were McDonald's owner operators in the early days. Their first store was unit number 150 in Florida. And so the Gainesville Sun wrote this article, and I asked my dad, are you worried about the competitors? And his response, which is very interesting, was very similar to what I just heard you say Walt Disney said. And of course, my father, I know, did not study Walt Disney, but he said, if we focus in our business on what we deliver best, we don't have to worry about our competitors. You just basically deliver what you offer the best you can for your customers, then you don't have to think about your competition.
Yeah.
And it's just one other little side of that. But I think it's brilliant thinking about not only the repeat customer, but the referrals, that they're bringing other customers with them.
That's right.
So,
that
so
is how their business is today. They've shaped it in that way. The fact that 8 out of 10 visitors to Disney theme parks are repeat guests.
Wow. Very impressive. Those are numbers we all want, right? When we want to have 80% repeat customers in our business, that's fantastic. So we have a few more minutes, not too much left. Oh gosh, because I wanted to go into, of course, being EX to CX expert, where I start with employee experience to customer experience. I would love to hear if you can give us a 1-line, 2-line insight about the principle that you talked about with the employees experience. If you could just share that.
So, again, that all started with Walt, and again, it just shows his genius, because he trained cast members to be guided by the fact that their primary role is always to help the guests. So it doesn't matter if they're a security guard, a ride operator, a bus driver, a cleaner. He said to them, your primary role is not any of those things. It's to help a guest. So, for example, if you see, if you're cleaning an area of Magic Kingdom, and then you see a couple who are taking a selfie of themselves, how much better would it be to go over there and say, hey, can I take the photo for you? Right? Things like that. Or to never say it's not my, or I don't know, that's not my area. They never say that. They're empowered. In fact, each cast member is given a little fold out sheet with all of the top information and questions that people ask. And they keep that with them, and they pull it out if someone asks a question. If that doesn't have the answer, then they call someone to get the answer directly for the guest. They'd never say, oh, go over there and that person can tell you, because that's frustrating for the guest to hear that.
And I wanted the word you said, empowered. And I think that's the key, is that they empower every single employee. And to put it succinctly, it's about the purpose. They're purpose driven over task driven. And that's something that I work with and teach my clients, is that you want your people to be purpose driven. You want them to be all focused on the end result, the best interest of your company that you're working for, and the values that you're presenting to your customers, more than the task that you're supposed to do right there in the moment, right? So purpose driven over task driven, and certainly empowerment and trusting your people to be able to represent you in the way you want. Why? Because in the very beginning, you've educated them, you've trained them, you've engaged with them, you've given them the tools to be successful for you. So gosh, Andrew, I'm going to have you back on, because there's so much more I want to talk about. But I do want everyone to know that coming up soon, April 1st, you are launching the Travel Pro Show. And what it is, you said it's an entertaining weekly travel show for small business owners and entrepreneurs that shares the secrets to smarter travel, including getting more perks, upgrades, and VIP status. Who doesn't want that when you're traveling? So stay tuned. And I'm going to put up here, for those of you who are watching on LinkedIn, YouTube, or Facebook, you can reach out to Andrew and find him and get more information on that. The Travel Pro Show will be just by that name, travelproshow.com. If you're interested in buying his book, please go to the WaltDisneyBook.com. Pretty straightforward. And more information about Andrew directly or to reach out to him, samsuccess.com. So a little bit different. It's up on the screen for those of you who need to see that. And in Clubhouse, we'll be joining you back shortly, and you can get any information directly contact with from Andrew then. Thank you so much. Wow. So many inspirational, so many great ideas and tips and so much more. And will you please come back as a guest another time?
Yeah, of course. I'd love to. Yeah, my pleasure.
Great. So there's so much to dive into, and I would love to do that more. Great. So thank you for joining. And then everyone stay tuned. I'm just going to say goodbye to Andrew here for a second, and we will be live again next Thursday. So I want to encourage everyone to join us next Thursday as well. And we're going to do the same thing with Clubhouse. My guest next Thursday is Amanda Lux, who comes from the hotel world since the age of 17, mostly working with the Marriott or the Ritz-Carlton brand. So many great things we're going to hear from Amanda and learn from. So really excited. Please join us again next Thursday for another interesting guest interview. And on Tuesdays, I go live. And I think I'm going to start to do that now on Clubhouse as well, where it's just me and I do a quick experience wins. So talking about a story, an experience story that I've had as a customer experience, or even from the employee side, and quick wins that you can take to apply directly to your business. So that's our goal, is to be able to help you improve your business, to learn from others, to help to do what others are doing good, and to stop doing what others are doing badly, so you don't incur the damage in your own business. So thanks again for joining today. If you're on the other platforms, join us on Clubhouse. We're going to be going back, opening up the stage there for everyone to join in on the conversation. And thank you again for joining today's episode of Celebrity Customer Experience Riffs with me, Jill Raff. Thanks so much.